Everybody, welcome to another edition of Another Fine Mess. I'm Roger Gray, along with
Mike Vance, from an undisclosed location in southeast central Texas, I might add.
Okay. Well, we'll keep it quiet for you if that's what you prefer. Hey, how are gas prices there right now, by the way?
Unchanged. They're hovering, depending on where you go, right around $4. You know, I had to drive to Fort Worth last week, and they were actually a little cheaper on the way up there. I think I got gas for, I don't know, $3.98 or something like that, Roger.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the same thing happen. I had to take Karen to Nacogdoches, and it was cheaper there than it is here in our little East Texas town. So I immediately whipped in and filled up. I mean, you grab it where you can. But it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because we're shooting at each other again, and the talks are off, and it goes back and forth. You know who is not worried about the price of gas, though? Scott Pelley. Scott Pelley, we'll get this out of the way quick. Another shakeup over at CBS, 60 Minutes. Scott Pelley is gone. He has been fired because at a staff meeting with the new producer, a guy named Nick Bilton, who was named to be the new executive producer at 60 Minutes. I mean, that's the chair that Don Hewitt occupied when he created 60 Minutes, 30, 40 years ago, something like that. Bilton is a tech columnist for the New York Times and a documentary filmmaker, which aren't bad credentials. Yeah, but he's never run a TV news program.
Yeah, they have nothing to do with TV news.
Yeah.
And just let me say, the name, when I saw that Nick Bilton, the first thing I thought of was Homer Simpson trying to make up some sort of alias, checking into a hotel. My name is Nick Bilton. Yes, Nick Bilton. I mean, just the guy.
Yeah, that's it.
First of all, I will credit him. He gave everything back to Pelley because I read the transcript of that meeting, which Pelley got an ovation from after Bilton left after 15 minutes. He wouldn't stay in there.
Right.
There's
and Barry
no
Weiss
doubt,
didn't even show up for the meeting.
Correct. There is no doubt that they are trying to make CBS, the news operation, ultra conservative. No question whatsoever.
Oh, yeah.
I question, and I've done it before, how much they really should have, be sinking into the news when the demographics are skewing older. But you said that 60 Minutes is one of the more profitable properties that CBS has.
Yeah, indeed. I looked it up right before we went on the air with this, and it is the most profitable program CBS has right now. So the question occurs to me, why are you screwing around with it? Work on other stuff. I'm sure Tony DeCopel's a nice guy. I'm a big fan of his wife, but he's not doing it in the anchor chair for CBS. So, by the way, to be fair, Justice Scott Pelley it didn't make it happen either when he anchored the evening news. So.
Yeah, and let me just say, I've said this for years. All the people that want to boycott everything, and that goes on both sides. I mean, that goes right and left. We need to boycott these people. And there are places, I will readily admit, that I have not spent a dime at in decades. I have not spent a dime at Walmart, for one, and other places who I won't give promotion to in literally decades. However, you are not going to hurt billionaires. And if billionaires take over CBS and are determined to turn it into a right-wing news operation, your boycott's not going to hurt them. I'm not saying don't do it. It makes you feel better. Go ahead. The advertisers, boycott them because they will pull out. And then at that point, CBS may indeed cave a little bit. It's too late for Scott Pelley, who was making how much a year?
Scott Pelley makes the estimates are from outside sources 7 million a year. His net worth is around 18 million. So Scott Pelley actually, if somebody was going to make the case right to the boss, Pelley was probably the guy to do it because he's not going to miss any meals after being canned over there. He'll either start doing what we're doing, or he will go to CNN, or he'll just hang it up and write a column or something, like Katie Couric is doing right now, as a matter of fact. So Scott Pelley's not losing any sleep or money.
No, and CNN is owned by the same people, I'll remind you, coming up shortly.
Well, they will be soon. Yeah, they may be soon. Yeah, that deal is almost done. So, yeah, it's pretty much going to leave ABC and NBC left as a haven for these folks. But the shakeup at 60 Minutes involved obviously Sharon Alfonsi, whose anger at having a story held up, she felt due to political reasons, went public. She didn't intend for it to, but it did. So that made her a target. And for some reason, they also fired Cecilia Vega. I have no idea why, other than her last name is Vega. They also fired the executive producer, who is Taryn Simon. She is the daughter of Bob Simon, legendary correspondent and then legendary 60 Minutes correspondent. He died in 2015, sadly in a car wreck. But she grew up in the business, like my daughter did, worked her way up, and had been named executive producer. So there was some legacy there with a Simon at the head of at the helm. They canned her as well. No reason given, really. So,
well,
yeah,
if we're talking about canning people for no reason, we've talked a lot about CBS and 60 Minutes, so I'm going to veer off here a little bit.
Sure.
But Hegseth and the promotions for all the admirals and generals, no women, no people of color. They were removed from the list. So what you said about Vega being fired for her last name being Vega, I think that's a solid guess.
Oh yeah. Well, and people aren't even being coy about it anymore. Jesse Waters, who I've mentioned many times, has the most punchable face on TV, said after the voting in California, he's like the former HHS guy for Becerra. Thank you. Waters said his main qualification is the sound of his name. He didn't go any farther than that, but he didn't really have to. I mean, it's just flat out fine. He's Hispanic. That's why he got votes. That's why he ended up ahead. They don't even pretend anymore, which is
no. They're
frankly
flat
kind
out
of
racist.
disturbing. Yeah,
flat out racist. And and I'm sorry. I will say there's somebody posted on Facebook regarding this and other stuff that I do, and said that they do listen to it, but that I am harshly left-leaning. No, racism is wrong. It's wrong.
yeah.
And we're talking about morality here. We're talking about following the rule of law. That's not left or right. That is morality and the rule of law.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's what he said is racist, and there's no, but I'm not surprised, to be quite honest. Before we leave CBS,
No,
I'll just say the only thing I will say in defense of what happened at CBS is when you do that at a staff meeting, and I have held many of those, and I have been a plebe in many of those. I have run them, and I have been, a member of the crowd. You don't do that. You ask questions. You might ask for some answers. You might ask for some explanations, etc. But you don't flat out say you're just not qualified to head up this newsroom. Pelley had to know that was going to have big career-ending ramifications, and it did. And he was in a position to do it. That's why they applauded him. They're all thinking, "Whew, thank gosh, I didn't have to do that." So, yeah, he had to know. He had to know. You can't be that blunt and not expect the axe to fall. It just does. That's the
Well, in
way it
that
works.
case, I'll hold back everything I was going to say about you, Roger.
Thank you, thank you. That's very kind. You were telling me something that I had not read. That are we in for a really good report on crime, particularly homicide, coming out?
Yeah, and homicide has been dropping ever since the pandemic. It reached a ridiculous high during the pandemic after already being at a long time low.
Yeah.
We are in for the projections are that we are in for the lowest murder rate in the FBI era. Now, the murder rate used to be higher if you go back to a century ago. But since there has been an FBI, so let's say roughly 100 years, give
Yeah.
or take, this will be the lowest murder rate ever. Both
Wow.
sides can claim credit for this. Number one is the conservatives pushing for law and order, and some a lot of centrists pushing for law and order. That has made a difference. The idea of defund the police, which most people that said that did not actually mean defund the police. They meant transfer money over into some social programs and intervention programs. Those have also made a big difference. So both sides can claim credit. But what I found really interesting is there are three other factors that nobody is talking about. Number one is that the United States population is older than it ever has been. And old people are not the ones that are murdering one another. That the people that are committing those crimes skew very, very young. Number two, this is the saddest one. Young people are spending more time indoors playing video games, and this is
Yeah.
not just a joke or an exaggeration. They actually are not outside doing stuff. Like when we were kids, you would go out and you would play. Sometimes your mom would say, "Go out and play," meaning get out of the house. You're causing a lot of trouble. Come
Get out
back
of my
at
hair. Yeah.
sundown. Yeah, an hour after the street lights come on is when I want to see you next. So that's the second thing. The third is that everybody seems to be ignoring here. We are under more surveillance than ever before. So there are more surveillance cameras around than ever before. And you still get conservatives that are out there decrying the murder rate and talking about crime is a big issue and talking about people being released from jail. And that's always anecdotal
Yeah.
because we have, again, this enormous jail population compared with anybody else on earth. And if you want to find something remotely comparable, oh, look to North Korea, look to the Saudis, those kind of places. The right wing is still trying to make crime a major issue, and yet we are on track for the lowest murder rate ever since the FBI came into being.
And it's a shame it will be made partisan because it's something that really both sides should applaud. This is a good
Yeah.
thing. This is good news. And,
Well,
and
and
you're right.
I was just going to say that we travel when we can. When we can afford it, which is becoming much less frequent than it used to be. But there, you hear all the time about the United States' reputation abroad, and
Yeah.
we were in Puerto Iguazu in Argentina, which is right on the
Well,
Brazil-Argentina border. And I got in a conversation with a guy that was handing out flyers for restaurants. And our language skills crossed over just enough to hold this conversation in a mix of bad English and bad Spanish. But he was talking about the U.S. and the thing that was his big takeaway is very violent. Goes very violent, very violent. And I'm like, not really. Said you come to certain neighborhoods in Chicago or Memphis or Baltimore, and yeah, it is very violent. But overall, that's not the case, and he was convinced. That's all he had heard. And this is a
Yeah.
random guy handing out food flyers on a street in Argentina. So that's our
Well, we
international
do.
reputation.
And a lot of that is the mass shootings. Let's be honest. It's the school shootings, the church shootings, you name it. Las Vegas shooting. That is what I think is creating a lot of that image abroad. Plus, nobody likes us anymore. I mean, let's be honest. They just don't
Yeah.
like us abroad anymore. We have alienated our friends, alienated our allies, alienated people that have come to our aid, like after 9/11. Hate to get off into that rant, but that is the case. Anyway.
Have you ever been when you've been out of the country? Have you ever been denigrated for being American?
Oh, the only time that sticks out in my mind is when I was with a group of journalists from really all over Europe. We were in Germany for the wall came down. I was there for the wall coming down, and the what would you call it? The not communications ministry, but whatever, the ministry that handles kind of the press. The West Germans.
Propaganda,
They
I
put us
think they
all.
call that in
Yeah,
Germany.
yeah. It used to be headed by a guy named Goebbels. Anyway, they put
Yeah,
us all on a
that's the
bus,
guy.
and I got into it. I actually quoted Pat Schroeder. Remember her, Congresswoman? Uh, Somebody, he was a Brit, and he was going on and on about, oh, you arrogant Americans, and what this would have been. The wall coming down, this would have been late Bush, early Clinton, right? Yeah, it would have been Bush, Daddy Bush. And he was going, oh, you Americans, you think you run everything, and all that. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, but when you have trouble, what do? You dial 1-800-USA, don't you? And I found myself getting very, puffed up and my back up about it. But it is true. That was a line from Pat Schroeder. When they're in trouble, they dial 1-800-USA. I'm not sure they will now. I don't know.
No, no, and I will say I got yelled at. My band was over. In fact, we were. This may have been when we were still doing radio. My band was over in Edinburgh for the Fringe Festival, and we were there 5 weeks.
Really?
And it was during it. I guess we were done with radio at that point because this was the wars, the interminable wars that George W. And Tony Blair had us in after 9/11, and the Brits were downright hateful towards Americans. We got yelled at in a restaurant, like going and saying, "Excuse me, can I?" Like, you have brown sauce on your table. We would like that over on our table. Are you done with this? Can I have it? And the guy just went off about Americans and the war and all of that. And I'm like, I didn't vote for the guy. But we heard over and over and over, and we got in trouble. One of my bandmates got in trouble for hanging a flyer in this building where we were performing. And one of the women, it was in a University of Edinburgh building, and one of the women that works there came out, and the building was built in the 1870s, and she goes, "This building is older than your country." And I happened to be standing there, and I said, "Well, you're off by 100 years, actually. But if you mean the country that we formed by beating your ass in a war, then yeah, that was the 1770s." And I turned around and walked off. But yeah, it was
So we both
incredibly
got very
uncomfortable.
patriotic when. And are you sure the criticism wasn't just because they'd heard your band? That
Hey,
could
man,
have played a part.
we played Willie's Picnic, for crying out loud. We were good.
Okay. All right. Well, the homicide rate is down. We should mention that the Paxton crime rate continues, but we'll hear less about it because, yes, Paxton's divorce trial is now off. They have reached an amicable settlement.
Yeah, well,
I'm
let's
not
be
sure
clear.
what.
The divorce is not off. They're just not
Yeah,
going
the
to trial.
trial.
Yeah, we don't get to see this in public.
Yeah,
His the term serial cheater, or however that was in one of the
yeah,
filings, that's
adulterer.
still out
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's still out there in the public record. Everything he did is
yeah.
still out there in the public record. We're just not going to get to see it
Oh yeah.
rehashed by his wife, who was a Republican elected official. So maybe one of those
Is
billionaire
she
West
still?
Texas donors gave him money. So I don't know.
Well, yeah. My understanding is he bought her a car. Well, I say car. It's a Brinks truck. Whatever it is, whatever it took to get her to drop the whole idea of going to trial over this. That's the only thing that's
Yeah.
canceled is the actual trial. So they'll settle up. He'll write a check he can't afford right now probably, and hopefully he's going to hope the public forgets it all. They won't,
Well,
but there you go.
no. Let's hope there is a steady diet of PAC money, which I am totally against. But until it's eliminated across the board,
Right.
everybody has to use it because that's
Yeah.
the corrupt system of bribery that we have. But let's hope there's a steady diet of PAC money replaying all of the Paxton stuff and the
Well,
White House stuff and tying all this corruption to the party. They're still, to this day, the Republicans have been in sole control of the state of Texas for 30 years. And
oh
yet
yeah.
they still say they're campaigning on, we're going to make things better and it's the Democrats' fault. 30 years. There's not been a statewide elected Democrat in 30 years. They have not had
Well,
control of either side of the legislature in 30 years.
they don't even have a
So,
say anymore. People like
no.
Dan Patrick, the word has gone out. Don't even put them, make them co-chair of a committee. Don't. I mean, the whole idea of, in Congress, the chair and then the ranking member, which is the number one person from the other party. We don't even have that. It's just, don't put them in any area of authority in the legislature. So it's pretty hard to blame somebody when they have no say.
There, the misinformation that leads to this ultra partisanship. There was a post that I saw this morning that some woman was going on about the picture of the White House with this gaping hole where
Yeah,
the East Wing used to be and the MMA fight cage going up.
yeah.
She's like, well, at least the president is paying for this. No, he's not. There was $1 billion appropriation rammed into an unrelated bill to pay for that ballroom stuff. Um, the idea, I mean, he's got these people brainwashed, and
Oh,
they're
I,
like, well,
I, I
that's just
agree.
the left talking. I mean, they're out of their damn mind.
Well, again, to be fair, I think the billion there was enough Republican opposition that the billion
Yeah,
probably isn't going to happen. But
which is why there's
yeah,
still a
it's
gaping
going to
hole
be
in the ground.
yes, and it was done without permission or permits or any of that, or
Yeah.
warning for that matter. The dozers just showed up one day. So yeah, it's ugly. The whole idea of having a UFC fight on the front lawn, on the south lawn, is to me the least classy thing I can imagine. I wrote this week, Mike. The lawn looked better when Woodrow Wilson had sheep grazing out there.
Yeah.
To be honest, you're a historian. You remember that.
Not
I
firsthand,
mean,
mind you, but
exactly. Yeah. He did it, by the way. I was looking it up, and he did it because the groundskeepers had volunteered for the war. And so he just brought in like 40, 48 sheep, and they just grazed and kept the grass cut, and he sold the wool. The wool went, the profits went to the Red Cross. So,
that's sheep. That's a big business, or not big business. It is a business that people will rent sheep to come in and mow your property.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of public parks that do that, where they put up the little orange temporary fencing, bring
Yeah.
sheep in because it is environmentally sensitive.
Cool.
And it's fun. People love coming out and seeing all
Oh yeah.
the sheep out there mowing the yard.
Well, you live in the country. When I lived in the country a couple of times, we lived in woods, and I was told goats, particularly, are also useful for that. And goats will go like halfway up a tree. Stand on their hind legs, and they'll eat foliage, up to. They'll even trim your trees to some extent. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love
So at least that's something we can credit Wilson with there. And by the way, did I already mention we've seen Tallarico's girlfriend? I don't know if I mentioned that.
it. Not today.
And she, okay, but yeah, she has been revealed. They are an item, but they're going to try the gay stuff. So. Yeah,
Yeah,
what are you gonna
let's be clear that she has not been revealed in the same way as Melania on the pole.
No, no. And
So,
there's even the rumor mill is churning about Melania, but I'm not going to contribute to it until we hear more. There are alternate versions of how she met Donald. Let's just put it that way. Out there. Yeah, yeah. And by the way, okay, back to issues, real issues. Iran talks off again. We're shooting at each other again. And so oil is back up to 100 or slightly more now.
and I hate to be the one. That's a lie. I love being the one that said I told you so. The idea that the war was going to be settled. The guy, the orange dude in the White House, actually said out loud, and again, Homer Simpson, I find the talks boring. They had gotten boring. That's Homer. That's Homer during the opera. Boring.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the guy that we are supposed to be relying on. Now, first of all, he's getting, and this is a lead into, I know something else you wanted to talk about. He's getting kind of kicked in the back from Netanyahu, but this is the guy who's like literally said in public, on camera, I don't care if we settle this or not. The talks have gotten boring. That's the guy who we are relying on.
Yeah, and I noticed that Marco
Polo?
was Marco Polo was challenged in the congressional hearings with the fact that while the talks were going on, the Congresswoman described it as a party. He was actually at a UFC fight with Trump in Florida, while Vance, he's already killed one pope. Vance was over there with a couple of real estate guys, Witkoff and Kushner, doing the negotiations. How we got all these real estate guys into positions of power is a little scary to me. But while they were over there doing negotiations, the Secretary of State was at a UFC fight in Florida, and Marco got took umbrage with that. But that is the case. One would think the Secretary of State would be there. That would be, kind of his bailiwick.
Yep, but we have a president who trusts real estate people more than he trusts diplomats. He has made it his first term, second term. He has made it his goal to fire all the professionals and bring in loyalists. That is what he's doing. And in his mind, nobody's more loyal than a real estate guy, because that's what he fancies himself as, is some sort of real estate tycoon. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Making great deals, the ultimate deal maker and that sort of thing. We have mentioned and I can't recall if we mentioned it last time, but the tweet whatever you call the Truth Social tweet, about the upcoming America 250 state fair celebration thing. We're down to like Vanilla Ice and who? Kid Rock? I don't know. But
Well, I don't even think they're coming. I'm not sure, but
yeah, and now Trump is apparently going to turn into a MAGA rally.
yeah.
And he announced that the performer, the central figure, the star, will be, what some people say is the greatest president in history and all of that stuff, who draws bigger crowds than Elvis in his prime. That was the line that kind of struck me because until the Beatles came along, there was nobody bigger than Elvis. So
And that works both ways. There was a great AI picture of Hirochito jammed into an Elvis leather suit, about to bust out of it, at his 400 pounds. They keep saying he's 6'3", by the way, and I will never tire of seeing the pictures of him meeting athletes that are actually 6'3", and he's this much shorter.
Well, the famous photo of when the Obamas at his first inaugural, they're standing on the steps of the Capitol, the Obamas and the Trumps, both standing there. I forget what President Obama is, 6'2", 6'3", something like that.
Well, he's not
and Trump
6'3".
is so very obviously shorter.
Yeah, Obama says he is 6'2".
6'2".
And yeah,
And Trump is obviously shorter. And it's the exact. It's like we're back to crowd size at the inaugural. It's always a measuring contest, isn't it? And that's as far as I'm going to go with that metaphor.
yeah. Bill Pulte. Bill
Yeah.
Pulte is
If that name is familiar, folks, if you think of Pulte Homes, it's that family. Yes.
except that he got kicked off the board of the family-run business. And what he was doing before he got appointed to run the housing, or Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, before he got appointed to run those into the ground,
Housing Finance, Authority.
he was running mobile home parks in Florida, not making this up. And he has not given up the housing gig. They have made him the interim National Intelligence Director.
Yeah.
With,
Well,
like I just said, they picked a guy out of a mobile home park in Florida and said, you are now in charge of national intelligence. As I mentioned, trying to get all the experts out of jobs. So what do you make of that one?
Well, number one, he's named the acting head of the acting DNI, Director of National Intelligence. That's a position that was created after 9/11 because it was thought, and rightfully so, that the various intelligence agencies, CIA, FBI, DNI, etc., were not DNI, but Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, were not talking to each other. They weren't communicating. They weren't on the same page. And that they needed somebody to wrangle all of those alphabet agencies and sort of put the intelligence together, coalesce it and come up with an idea of what's going on. That's what DNI was supposed to be. Tulsi Gabbard probably wasn't qualified, but at least she had time in the military and time in Congress, so there is that. But Pulte,
well, the thought process is he's the closest guy he has in government is the guy that was supposed to be running this weaponization fund, the 1.8 billion that has now, at least for the moment, been dropped as an idea.
Yeah.
But the thought is that Pulte is being brought in to do exactly that weaponization stuff in the name of national intelligence. So just like Gabbard had shown up in Georgia inexplicably to try to go after those missing 16,000 votes from the 2020 election, that this is what Pulte is there for, that there's no intention of trying to get him passed in the Senate, which he would probably not be able to do.
No, he would not. He would not
So,
get confirmed.
yeah.
But
So,
if they propose somebody who also can't get confirmed, he gets to stay. The clock is ticking. It's like 200 something days he can serve as acting. If they can't get a candidate through, the clock starts again. So he can do another 200 some odd days.
yeah.
So who knows how long this could go on. And he is obviously manifestly unqualified for this.
Yeah. So,
It doesn't. There's no area. There's no planet on which he's qualified for this.
and that's the likelihood is they don't care. They want him to be there because he is a bulldog that will go after Trump's enemies in the name of
Which is
national
what he did.
security. And
Which is what he did in the housing finance department.
yeah, exactly.
Trying to get Lisa Cook on the Fed, Letitia James in New York, the prosecutor, Adam Schiff, try to get them on mortgage fraud because they had, I guess, mislabeled a vacation home or something like that. I mean, that's how he spent his time, is trying to get the goods on people the president doesn't like.
Well, and he will now be doing that in the name of national security for the foreseeable future.
And I have to say, I read an alarming piece about the price of oil and oil shortages. If the Strait of Hormuz, if the deadlock continues, if this war continues, we have been cushioned up to this point from the worst effects of it by oil reserves, oil surpluses that have been stashed away for years. But we've been going through them at quite a rate. And it is estimated, the Atlantic Council reported that, which is a kind of a think tank, it reported that we're gonna run through them here and overseas in Europe and elsewhere. We're going to run through them by the fall. When that happens, it really hits the fan because the world runs on diesel. Everything we buy, everything we need, the gasoline that goes into the tanks at the gas station, it all is delivered by diesel. The farmers use diesel. Fertilizer uses natural gas. The next crop is going to be expensive. We're going to see store shelves again emptying out a bit, if not completely. It's going to be ugly if they can't get this solved. And
Wait, I'm hearing a statement from the White House. Boring.
yeah, really.
Boring. Yeah, they don't care. But I mean, it's going to happen. There's a theory going around that's very interesting that all the Republicans are wringing their hands and banging their heads against the wall because they think they're going to have terrible losses in the midterm, which let's hope is the case. However, they're not getting any help on this from the White House. So the theory is that he actually wants a Democratic whipping boy, if you will. And basically his big goal is to just reaffirm his control over the base and keep being the kingmaker, more or less, in the primaries, even after he leaves office. And that the thought process is he can achieve that better with Democrats to rail against as opposed to an all-Republican-controlled Congress.
Interesting. Well, I have a question for you. How do you think, before we get to your historical fact, because we're near the end, how do you think the midterms are going to go? What do you see happening? I have to say, for all of his flaws, and flaws is a really mild term, I have to say I think Paxton's going to pull it off.
It's possible. It comes down to turning out the vote. And
Sure.
I mean, that's it. I think the majority of people, you can look at poll after poll after poll, and yes, polling is flawed. We have seen that in elections. But the majority of people want this administration gone, and they want competent people back in charge. there 80% is one of the numbers that I saw of people that are opposed to this war that is boring, that continues, and as you said, is going to really become a major issue in the fall. Well, the fall is when the midterms come up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Historically, in the last 100 years, only one time has the party in power not lost seats in both houses of Congress. And that was right after 9/11.
Yeah.
And the Republicans, when George W. was in office, the Republicans did not lose seats. That is the only time it has ever happened in history. So history tells you that the Republicans are going to lose seats, and they really can't afford to and maintain power. So that's my
Okay. That's your
that's
call.
my tentative call at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Give us your, take us out with your historical, obscure historical fact.
Yes. I wanted to talk about a guy. This is an interesting story I ran across on an old blog from 5 years ago, looking for something else, and that's when you find the best things. A guy named Albert Broel, Broel, who he's a con man, basically, is what we're talking
Okay.
about here. Supposedly, his own backstory was that he was in the Russian army during World War One. His entire unit was wiped out. The Germans captured just him, and it turns out that the German officer, is his cousin, who turns him loose and sends him to America. So that's how he got here. He moved to
Okay.
Detroit, ended up in Ohio and Detroit, back and forth. Had a thing called the Friendship Society that was like a mail order bride catalog that got
Okay.
sent out. And it turns out there was a mass murderer in West Virginia using this to find new victims. So that didn't work out well. The dude ends up in New Orleans and got into frogs. So,
Frogs.
frogs. He became the bullfrog king of the United States. Had a building on the American Frog Canning Company that was out on the Metairie Highway, and he was canning frogs' legs and also selling live frogs to restaurants in the French Quarter. And claiming he got in trouble with the Federal Trade Commission because he was claiming, I want to make sure I get this number right, that encouraging people to go into frog farming. That was he would sell books. People could buy books about how they could go into frog farming and make up to $360 billion. This was in the 1930s. 360
Okay.
billion. So, I think we probably only have maybe a couple dozen people on Earth today worth 360 billion. But Albert Broel is telling people you can start a frog farm and make $360 billion. Even after the FTC slapped him down, he was still selling books. The last one came out in 1950 called, oh man, I just had that.
How much is that froggy in the window?
Yeah, damn near. But it was basically farming frogs for profit and pleasure.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Really?
And apparently, in addition to being a con man, the guy really loved frogs.
Apparently. Sounds like.
Well, we got to hop
That's
on
Mark.
out of here.
Yeah. All righty. Michael Vance, thanks, sir. Appreciate it. And thank all of you for joining us for this edition of Another Fine Mess.